Hey, party people, Panda Brady here, and I just finished watching 12 Forever. So, um, first of all, I enjoyed the show. Secondly, I found out that the creator of the show got fired from her own show. Apparently there was a lot of, couple weeks back, there was a lot of controversy, with the creator. Um, I don't want to go into that because it kind of spoils the mood of the show. But I'm hoping that whoever they have doing it now can do it justice for a season 2, because there's a lot open that they could do. But first off, I enjoyed the heck out of the animation. It was really good and fluid, but the characters have this weird angular style. It's a nice change of pace compared to other cartoons nowadays. But anyways, voice acting's great, especially the Butt Witch. Oh, I love the Butt Witch. The Butt Witch is the best part of the show. It's just too bad she's not more of a prominent character. Oh, I do love the Butt Witch's voice. It's kind of like this, but a little bit deeper. Reminds me often of the, something rotten Shakespeare. And then there's Big Deal, who's her minion, basically. He's love-struck for her and is just like, I'll do anything for you, ma'am. Anyways, I loved this show. Finding out about the controversy kind of soured the experience. But I still enjoyed it. I applaud the team that worked on it. And yeah, let's jump into the recap. So, episode 1, we get introduced to quite a few characters from the pilot. I do want to say the show is different than the pilot. The pilot originally had just 2 characters, which were 12 and Shane, or Reggie as she's known. But I feel like they did a good dynamic in this one, because they end up having 3 characters, being Reggie, Esther, and Todd. But there are a few times where it's like, I don't think they needed Esther to make this work, but it feels a little better. Anyways, enough digressing. Episode 1, we get introduced to the toys, which include Brown Roger, Mermaid Johnson, Mac and Beef House. Those 2 are pretty fun too, but I'll get to them because there's an episode where it focuses on them. But yeah, so Reggie has a bunch of toys that her mom's like, oh, get rid of these so we can give them to the garage sale. And 12 is like, no, I'm just gonna hide these things in Endless Isle, which is the fantasy land that she can teleport to thanks to her key totem thing. I feel like it's a lot more fleshed out than the pilot, whereas the pilot was just like, oh no, it's just a world of her subconscious and blah blah blah, and somehow she can bring stuff from her subconscious to the real world. In this one, it's more like, oh, this place has always existed, and it just so happens that she managed to find this place. But that's later on. So yeah, you get introduced to the toys, and there's a big label monster, or label gun monster, rather. They defeat it pretty easily. Episode 2, we get introduced to the Butt Witch, who, again, my favorite part of the show. The Butt Witch happens to be because things that are buried on Endless become living beings. So Reggie, not realizing this, tosses a bunch of books that her mom gave her on the changes in development that she will be going through soon. She is 12 after all. She threw it into this weird green volcano, or green lava-ish volcano thing, and that brought forth the Butt Witch, who acts like they've been there before, and the island is theirs, and they never really expand upon that, and it kind of irks me. I guess they're saving it for Season 2 stuff. But, anyways, you get introduced to the Butt Witch. The Butt Witch attacks. She loses her tail at one point, and she's like, "Oh, no, I must retreat now." And Big Deal's like, "Ma'am, you dropped your tail here." And so now he is nursing her back to health. Episode 3, we get Esther to show up. And I know I haven't talked about the characters. We've got Reggie, who is a classic overhype, or hyperactive 12-year-old with a blooming imagination, plays with her toys, and makes her own sets. I felt a little called out from when I was a kid, because I used to do that stuff all the time. And then there's Todd, who is like, "Oh, I'm the cool guy. I enjoy music, like rock and roll. And I love playing the guitar, but I don't have a guitar, and I'm kind of rusty." But like on Endless, he has the ability to shapeshift, which in the pilot Shane had that. 12 has super strength, and she's like, "I'm the best at everything." And then Esther shows up, and they're like, "Oh, hey, it's that new girl from class. How'd you get here?" "Oh, well, I made this little flute, and I played it, and poof, I was here." It's like, I feel like there needs to be more explanation, but okay. And when she enters, I oddly get Cyber Chase feels throughout the show. She is smart, quirky, etc. I feel like she's probably supposed to be on the spectrum, because I myself am, and was incredibly hard to deal with as a kid. And every little thing she did, I felt it. Because I was like, I did that, I do that, I'm still like that. Anyways, episode 4, Todd's older brother goes off to college, and he's upset, so he wants to make himself a new brother. And one of the inhabitants of the island, Morbo or Borbo or something like that, he messes it up by throwing in a picture of a dog, and we get Guy Pleasant, who happens to also be voiced by the Butt Witch. I don't recall the actor's real name. Todd is voiced by Pitt, by the way, and I was angry at myself because I was like, man, he sounds like Justin Briner meets Dante Bosco. Who is that? Where have I heard him before? Didn't realize until like 7 episodes in. I was like, that's Pitt from Kid Icarus and Smash Bros. Anyways, I'm sorry I keep sidetracking. Anyways, Guy Pleasant shows up, and he is the dog prince of rock and roll or something like that. Todd's not happy. He tries to make another. This brother ends up messed up and kind of babyish, and Guy Pleasant hears Todd's struggles about having to deal with his own brother being gone, and Guy Pleasant shows up and he's like, very well, then I will be your pop. And he's like, I don't need a dad, but this one does. Oh, very well, I'll be this one's dad. Then there's episode 5 where they're like, hey, you ever wonder how everything works in Endless? Oh, yeah, you're right. And then Reggie's all like, guys, don't overthink it. It's fun. If you overanalyze everything, it's going to be dull. And I feel like that's a shot at cartoon YouTubers and fans nowadays, because every little thing is analyzed and checked and double-checked to see if it means something greater. And I feel like even though they're pointing that out and making fun of it, they're also trying to encourage you at the same time. Just because of how much there is. Episode 6, we have Space Draculas. Yeah. I kind of feel targeted because the episode's moral is dealing... By the way, each of these episodes usually have a moral. And episode 6 moral is about how siblings can grow apart as they grow older. But it really made me stop and reflect because I'm like... I'm an older brother. I have a younger brother in high school right now. And because of how I am, being Asperger's, heavy Asperger's, like, I'm functional, but I forget that I'm a quarter of a century year old. I sometimes feel like I'm still 17. And I'm like, wait a minute. That was 8 years ago. And it's just, it really hurts to think about. But I feel like myself and my brother are drawing apart. And it's natural. It's normal. And this episode, like, almost brought me to tears thinking about all the good times we used to have. And I miss it. But that's why we hang out sometimes, and just like the show, you gotta deal with it. It happens to everybody. Not everybody can be close as can be throughout their entire life. Episode 7, we get a Mac and Beef House episode where, yes, they are a gay couple. It was mentioned at the beginning of, or near the beginning of episode 1. But in episode 7, you actually get to see how far things are, and they're like, oh, we're having a small little get-together party, and oh, we made casserole, and look, I'm sorry that I called you out on this. I hear your hurt feelings, and I accept that. I know I'm in the wrong, but I know that you're in the wrong, and we both take that to heart, and blah, blah, blah. And it is very much that, oh, this is stuff you hear from a therapist. And they even mention that. They go to a therapist, apparently. But, of course, the butt witch, oh, how droll. Well, I know how to shake things up. Big deal. Take this potion, put it in their cards, and then whenever they open it up, poof, they'll be mad at each other. Ha ha. Yes, ma'am, right away. But, yeah, so that's that episode. Eventually, Reggie's like, no, you guys love each other, and they rip the card to break the spell. But anyways, episode 8 is about having to be mature. This episode was mostly outside of Endless, but it's about Reggie having to realize that there are times that you have to be more mature than you normally are, but her mom compromises, and it kind of messes up the dynamic, but I mean, it works at the same time because she still has to wear the dress that she doesn't want, but she gets to have the big goofy boots. Episode 9 is about teaching. Oh yeah, Dr. Champion. Yeah, so in episode 9, they're all like, man, school sucks. Hey, if we made a school in Endless, I bet we'd be the best teachers ever. And then they realize, oh no, teaching is hard, and we have to except that some students are a little bit faster than the others, and that's why I mentioned Dr. Champion, because he's like... And Dr. Champion is a treat, by the way. He's almost always yelling, and he looks like a Kamen Rider. He's like, oh, I've read this book already. What else is there to do in school? I know that's a terrible impression, but yeah. So they it's basically the whole look. Teachers have it hard, okay? You just gotta deal with it. Kind of moral. Episode 12 is about dealing with inadequacy. Oh, wait, no, I skipped episode 11, I skipped a couple episodes. Episode 10 is about getting over embarrassments and bad moments. I felt really bad for Reggie because she had a birthday where nobody showed up for her party. And when I was a kid, my mom would never allow that. It was, no, your friend's having a party, you're going. Yeah, and heck, I was even the only person that showed up at one of my friend's parties, and I was like, awkward. But thankfully, from that exchange, I found out about Airplane and fell in love with that movie. I had no idea it was a parody comedy when I went into it. Anyways, enough digressing. Oh, yeah, and one of the embarrassing things that Reggie does is she collects her scabs and names them. Gross. Not as gross as what happens in episode 11. So, Reggie decides to bury her scabs to make a scab garden. It's as gross as it sounds. But they introduced this very little guy named Manguin, and he's just so polite and all about cleaning. Oh my, this is such a mess. Well, we'll get that cleaned right away. I am a Manguin of my word. It's too bad he's only in one episode, because he's hilarious. Especially when he turns into Guy Fieri for some reason. I'm not joking. It's a weird episode, but he teaches Reggie that you have to clean sometimes, and there is a limit to having fun. Kind of like the Cat in the Hat. It's fun to have fun, but you've got to know how. I know lots of good tricks, and I'll stop this right now. I better stop that before I go on a rant. Episode 12, like I was saying earlier, is dealing with inadequacy because Reggie's mom's boss... Reggie's mom is a nurse, by the way, and her boss comes over for dinner, and she brings her daughter, and her daughter goes with Reggie to her room, and she's like, so you got any jewelry? And she's like, and Reggie's like, oh, I've got these little turkey earrings. And she's like, oh, that's nice. Do you have anything real? Because I've got this bracelet. It's cubic zirconia. This jacket, it's a Giorgio Armani. My dad knows him. Fuck you. I ain't having that yet. Sorry, I had to quote JonTron for a second. But yeah, and because of the inadequate feelings, Reggie's like, oh, I don't like this. And the Butt Witch, of course, is like, oh, how wonderful. Reggie is feeling inadequate. Well, we'll trap her in this castle, which I made from her mother's class ring, and then we'll break it so that she'll die within it. Ah, she got out. Oh, well, I had lots of fun. Thank you, big deal. You're welcome, ma'am. Episode 13, you get to learn about the creatures living around Endless and come to terms with you not being the center of attention. That is a really helpful episode to children, because so many believe that everything revolves around them, And in this episode, you get to see that outside of what they do with 12 Todd and Esther, they have lives outside of that. Some of them a little bit better than others. Dr. Champion has a really weird life. Tater Tot and Gerald or Garrett or something like that are hilarious. Episode 14, we get to meet a character known as Sadmantha, who never shows up again. This happens a lot because the series is kind of episodic. Not just kinda, it is episodic. Sadmantha is a song brought to life because Reggie's dad is no longer in the picture. Not that he passed away, he just left. But she remembered a song from a little snow globe, and the snow globe song came alive. And it's all sad. It's like, do you ever think about how there aren't enough people to adopt all the puppies in the world? What about all the lost puppies? And I'm like, you're really harshing my mellow right now. But yeah, the episode is about how you need to deal with a divorced parent that's no longer in the picture, and how there are people you can talk to and hang around to feel better about it. It's not going to always make you feel better, but it can help. And that is a strong suit of this show, is the morals are good, but the execution is not the best. Then we have, let's see, episode 15, where Reggie has to learn to be a responsible babysitter. She even takes this little 4-year-old into Endless, and he's all frightened of everything because everything's too high octane for him. But she learns to compromise, and that's the big moral to take away from it. Episode 16, there wasn't really a moral, but it is there to just kind of strengthen the bond between Big Deal and the Butt Witch. Because Big Deal notices that 12 isn't at some fair and decides to sneak into the fair disguised as her and tries to ruin her reputation. Oh, and this is also on the 7-week anniversary of Big Deal and and the Butt Witch. And anyways, Big Deal gets beaten up and thrown out, and he heads home, and he tries to sneak back in because Big Deal never leaves without my permission, as the Butt Witch puts it. But the Butt Witch stops him, and she's like, I know what you did, Big Deal. I'm sorry, ma'am, it's just, I have something for you. Here, it's that cake you made for me. We'll share it. Oh, that's very nice of you, ma'am. You want a taste? Well, maybe just a little. But, next is episode 17 and 18, which is a 2-parter. Reggie breaks her key by accident when spying on this 8th grade girl who I think Reggie might be gay because they kind of hint at it with how she's really nervous about this girl. Though it could just be, oh, she's so cool and I feel like I'm so lame kind of thing. But she breaks her key, and we get to see how she first came to Endless, met some people, brought Todd in, but eventually she figures out how to fix her key and that the power comes from within and not from anything else. You'll hear a slight pause here. Alright, sorry, I had to do something real quick. Anyways, back to the summary. Episode 19, Butt Witch turns Brown Roger into nightmare fuel, and Todd coughs out a weird worm that the Butt Witch eats, and she's like, oh yes, it's so euphoric, I must have more. More, I say. Episode 20, Reggie's appendix bursts on spring break. And it seems that the longer you're on Endless, you begin to forget stuff. Because Esther and Todd forget things like their favorite poem or Todd's sisters in Todd's case. They also lose track of time and their minds. Endless is scary, and it seems like the inhabitants are all for it too. But it's kind of a good thing that Reggie wasn't with them for the week, because she was able to save them. And there's a really ominous ending with Guy Pleasant, but nothing really comes of it. Episode 21, Todd meets a girl named Gwen. She's very bold, reminds me of... never mind, I'm not going to say that, but the school has a dance, and Reggie seems to have a fear of that 8th grade girl. Or maybe she likes her, it's heavily hinted. Reggie has to deal with others getting older or more mature. That's the whole thing, is like, maybe you're not as mature as your friends, but you have to let your friends do what they want. You can't just rule the roost all the time. Episode 22, Todd wants to join a band, and Esther accidentally takes the spot because she is reminding him how to play the song. In anger, Todd complains about Endless while in Endless, and 12 and Todd cough out more worms, and the Butt Witch gets more power. Episode 23, they start talking about what they want at 25. That hurts. I feel attacked. Yeah, I'm 25. And Esther's like, oh, I want to run my own company and publish 2 novels. And I'm like, you wanted to do that. During this time, this guy named Elmer shows up, who reminds me a lot of Flip from Lil Nemo, and I think that's on purpose. He basically, it's about don't be so gullible. Because Elmer's like, oh wow, I'm a traveler. I travel from place to place, and wow, can I see all your stuff? Oh cool, I'm gonna steal it now. Turns out Elmer is from Iowa. I forget the name of the town. It's like Botha or something like that. Anyways, it's not Botha. They find out that he's from the real world from 1950s, and that there are more islands than just Endless out in this alternate dimension, which they hint at maybe discovering, but again, nothing ever comes of it. This is a 25-episode show. Episode 24, Todd is turning 13, Reg sets up a party, and Todd and Gwen kiss. It's because Todd and Gwen are boyfriend and girlfriend, and they accept that. And Todd brings up that he wants to bring Gwen to Endless, because 12's like, hey Todd, we set up this awesome party for you in Endless. And he's like, oh cool, can I bring Gwen? Reggie gets upset about that, and she's like, no, this is our place. You can't bring anybody else, blah, blah, blah. Well, Esther wasn't you or me, and she's gotten along. Yeah, but that's because everything's fine now. And it's one of those, you gotta get used to change stories, but all 3 of them end up fighting, rather, because Todd even starts speaking up, and he's like, Esther, just tell her what you told me, how you need to start sticking up for yourself. And she was like, yeah, I wanted to be at the dance, but you pulled us away and said that we wanted to leave, but I didn't want to leave, and blah, blah, blah. They end up all fighting and coughing out more worms, which the Butt Witch eats. The fight escalates, and eventually the islanders are scared, and 12 throws a rock down, and she's like, fine, never mind, just leave. And so Todd and Esther do. And then episode 25, the final episode. So these worms have been mutating the Butt Witch into this giant dragon thing. Kind of awesome to look at, actually. And there's even a part where she picks up Big Deal, and she's like, "Big Deal, if you want to date me, you'll have to get on my level. Eat one of these." "Oh, no, ma'am, I have a texture thing, you know that." "I didn't give you a choice." And then Big Deal turns into a mutant Big Deal. So the two villains begin trashing the island and are more than a match for 12, even damaging her. They cut up her arm and burn it, and when she returns to the real world, the damage stays, which is new because normally like any damage fixes once they come back. She runs over to Todd and Esther, who are leaving the house, and she's like, "Guys, wait, the Butt Witch is back and she's destroying the entire island." They're like, "I don't know." She's like, "You don't know? Fine, I'll deal with this myself." Goes, almost gets defeated by mutant Big Deal, or Big Deal as I call him. But Todd and Esther end up coming in and save her. The three of them take on the Butt Witch, who is a little bit more than a match for them. But there's a part where Bazooka from Flaps, one of the inhabitants that shoots out weapons, I forgot about him. He shoots out a bazooka to 12, and 12 shoots the Butt Witch, causing all her arms to disappear. And she's like, oh, I'm so injured." "Not really." More arms. So, sorry about that. So it seems that they are doomed, but the power of love or friendship forms a physical barrier and protects them. And she's all like, "How did you do that?" "Well, it doesn't matter. It won't work a second time." But before the Butt Witch can land a final blow, before the final blow was struck, they tore open a portal in time. No. The solidified friendship love stuff turns the islanders into giant versions of themselves, and they start fighting the Butt Witch. And eventually the Butt Witch is on the ropes, and Reggie points the bazooka at the Butt Witch's face, and in a weird change of pace, Todd and Esther are like, "Yeah, do it, Reggie, kill him." And I was like, okay, didn't expect to hear the word kill in this show. But she's like, "No, I know something even worse." She grabs some solidified friendship love and shoots it into the mouth of the Butt Witch. The Butt Witch shrinks down into a itty-bitty Butt Witch. And the Big Deal mutant reverted back to Big Deal earlier, comes up and is like, "Oh, don't worry, ma'am. I'll take care of you. I'll nurse you back to health." Takes her away, and everybody's all happy and stuff. And finally, Reggie's like, "All right, I'll show up to Todd's birthday." She shows up at the party, and she's got these 2 tickets. And in a really grown-up move for 12, she's like, "Yeah, they're not very good seats, but they're all I could afford. I figured you could take Gwen and go see it." And I was like, wow, that's very grown up of you, 12. And then we end on a little cliffhanger where it appears that 12 tells Gwen about Endless. Because Gwen's like, "Hey, what happened to your arm?" And she's like, "Oh, it's a long story." And then it kind of fades away with mumbling towards Endless. And then you get the ending credits, the song. And yeah, it, like I said, it was really good. The Butt Witch is the best part of the show, followed closely by Dr. Champion. He's not a real doctor. That his name is Dr. Champion. But yeah, I enjoyed the show. Again, the controversy really soured my enjoyment afterwards. There were a few parts where adults were nice to the kids, and I was just like, I don't like the implications But yeah, it's a good show. In this case, I want to say the art is more than the artist. And so with that, again, I do recommend this, but be warned that the creator, who is no longer part of it, did some stuff back in 2009. But anyways, like and share if you enjoyed. Subscribe to become part of the Panda Party, because there ain't no party like a Panda Party, because Panda Party don't stop. And I'll see you guys in the next video. Later.